everybody, it's Scott Bunce again, and today I'm with Teresa Caro. And Teresa was kind enough to speak at my Vistage group, and her speech was on positive intelligence.
Yep.
Teresa, welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So my group was really impressed with how well you did a survey or had them take a survey right in the middle of the meeting. They did it on their phones. They got some results, and as did I, by the way. And they were really impressed how you were able to tie it together. But why don't we take a step back, talk a
Okay.
little bit about positive intelligence and maybe how it applies in the business world.
So a couple of things. One is we say positive intelligence, and really that's mental fitness. And I like saying mental fitness because at the end of the day, our brain is a muscle, just like the rest of our muscles. And for those of you who are listening to you, we all know that there are muscles that are easy to exercise and muscles that are hard to find and hard to activate. And from a muscle perspective, as we look at our brain, is really hard to find the parts of our brain that are put us in a positive mindset, that help us problem solve, that give us joy. There's been a lot of research done around our brain and how we have thousands of thoughts each day, yet 70% of them are negative. So 70% are hanging out back here in this part of our brain, which probably, and I have no scientific proof, it's probably why we hold it all in our shoulders and our neck. And we really need to move it to the prefrontal cortex. This is where positivity comes into place. So that assessment or that tool that we had all of you fill out helps us figure out what are those things in our life that triggers us and causes us to put things in a bit of a negative mindset. And so going back to your question about what does this have to do with business, what I do is I work with executives and leaders of organizations to help them show up as the best people that they can be. And if you're showing up in a negative mindset, if you're showing up with a I can't versus I can kind of attitude, then really that concludes you're not showing up as your best self that you can truly be.
Absolutely. Now, it seems to me that as we did it, people were falling into particular buckets. And
Yes.
there were a lot of buckets where people can fall into. And as a matter of fact, here, uh, oh, you're not going to be able to see it on the screen, but I came out as a hyper achiever, and I saved it, by the way. And
Good.
so there was hyperachiever, controller, restless, pleaser, hyper rational, stickler, hyper vigilant, and avoider. And that just happened to be the order of mine. But let's use mine as an example. What are some of the positives and maybe challenges of a hyperachiever?
I love that you used hyperachiever as an example because there's a difference between a trigger and being hijacked. uh, Chances are the people in your group, the mere fact that they're investing in themselves are achievers. These are people that are career minded people that are willing to work hard, that are willing to put in the extra time it's going to take that week to do all the work that they need to do to make up for the time that they spent with you. But they know it's worth it. They know that this investment is going to help them continue to further their career. The hyper part is when it hijacks them. So they're putting in time with you, they're listening to podcasts, they're going to workshops, they're working 15 hours a day, 80 hours a week, and they forget all the rest of their life. That's so now this trigger that has caused us to be high achievers have now hijacked us to be hyper achievers, which means then we can't live what I like to call a prioritized life. A prioritized life means we're putting the most important things first, and career can't be all of it. But yes, career gives us joy, but there's other things in our lives that also should give us joy.
So you're saying I've been hijacked, is what you're saying.
Well, so, and I'm so glad you put it that way. That assessment, and I don't like that it's called an assessment because we think of Myers-Briggs or PXT or Hogan or something like that. It's not who you are, it's those things that at the moment that you took the assessment, those are the things that came up at the top of what could potentially hijack you. If you look at mine, it's hyperachiever, avoider, and hypervigilant. So if you look at me, because I am, I have the tendency to be hijacked by my desire to be successful. And if I worry, so my hypervigilance, I go from being vigilant, that's, thinking about all the things that could go wrong, to hypervigilant, where now I'm constantly worried and impacting everyone around me with my worry, that instead of worrying, I avoid. So now, in my effort to be successful and worrying about something I might do wrong, I just avoid the whole situation altogether. And so it's not necessarily who I am, it's just all the things that can converge together in certain situations that would cause me actually to be the opposite of what I want to be, which is not successful and not achieve.
Yep, I can see where that would be a challenge. Uh, do you have any tips for people on how to become more aware of positive intelligence and or practice it on a regular basis? What kind of tricks do you have?
I don't know about tricks, but tips. So, a lot of us, some more than others, are very mindful of how we feel. When we are naturally leaning forward, when our heartbeat races just a little bit more and we're just getting so excited, we talk a little bit faster, we're nerding out, as some of us like to say. Chances are we're in the sage brain, we're experiencing joy, we're in a problem solving kind of mindset. The moment and for me, I feel it in my stomach, the moment our stomachs sort of tighten up, our breath becomes a little bit more shallow, and you're just not looking forward to that meeting. That is the first step of acknowledging where you're feeling things, what part of your brain is activating. And typically, traditionally, we talk about yoga and breathing exercises and meditation. Positive Intelligence, this program that I run, that's actually part of a larger program called Living a Prioritized Life. It teaches you how to activate that sage brain in the moment. I like to say out in the wild. And it's these little mini meditations. And so it's using your fingertips or focusing on your breathing or focusing on a statement or focusing on someone's glasses to just bring yourself centered and bring you back to your front of your mind and taking control of the situation. Those are the simplest tips. I will tell you that it is really hard and it's much like training for a marathon, right? You start off trying to find the little muscles, exercising little muscles. The first, I don't know, month of training for a marathon, you are in so much pain. Then you feel like you're doing well, and then you hit that 7 mile mark, and someone has to teach you that you actually have to eat while you run. Like there are these different levels that you get to. So the tips I can give you now, there's actually heavier weights that we put on the barbells as we get more and more. And so you go through the program, but then you have to continue to exercise that muscle. And it's just a lot more fun to do with a group. So I've formed a group and we do that together. So yeah, I could give you tips like I did, but just know that sometimes it's helpful to have someone talk you through it and problem solve as well.
Well, we'll get to how do people find you and learn more about what you're doing in a moment. But
Okay.
before we do that, is there a time where you were working with an individual or a group and there was like a memorable aha moment based on working with them in positive intelligence? A story you could share?
No, absolutely. The biggest thing, so what's really interesting about mental fitness is we think a lot about how it's us. We're the ones that need to change only. And another interesting piece of research that's going on is this idea of micro expressions. I don't know if you've ever seen the TV show Lie to Me, but he was really an expert in micro expressions. And that's something that in the TV show, he could actually, he knew it and he could see it. Most of us just don't know that it's happening, but we feel it. It's that moment you go in the room and you're like, right away, something feels off, or right away you feel nervous or uncomfortable versus the moment you walk in the room and someone makes you feel comfortable. And those are those micro expression kinds of things. And so, going back to your question about that aha moment, is we were having a conversation about going into this meeting and how this guy constantly just triggers this bad behavior. And we were talking about it in from a perspective of the client, but then we also realized that this guy caused the same reaction to lots of other people, which brings you back to that concept of micro expressions. That person's saboteurs were sabotaging everybody else in the room, which is also something I work a lot with clients on is okay, well, then how do we preempt those saboteurs? How do we make sure either A, it doesn't happen because we're taking certain steps before the meeting happens, or in the meeting, acknowledging that it's happening and having, maybe even a vulnerability based trust kind of conversation to express, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Let's take steps to sort it out and make it better. Now, we all know that there are certain relationships that that's not realistic and it'll take more time. But that was a bit of an aha that it isn't just on us to fix ourselves. It's also acknowledging the impact we have on others and the impact those people have on us. And how do we sort through that?
Yeah, no, great example. Great example. All right, Teresa, people are sufficiently teased by your skills. How do they get a hold of you if they want to learn more or connect with you?
Well, I'm quite prolific on social media, so you can definitely find me on LinkedIn, Teresa Caro. If you want to check my company out, I run a company called Liminist. And just as a quick aside, have you ever heard of the term liminal?
No.
So liminal is that betwixt and between statement. And so anthropologically, there's been a study of liminality and how people go through several states. Well, a lot of people get stuck in that middle. So I've become a specialist in the liminal state, thus liminist. So theliminist.com is my website. And so you can reach out to me in either of those places.
Well, that's great news. I encourage people to do it. Again, you were a tremendous speaker at our Vistage group, and I know that several of my members were very interested in learning more. And I'm wishing you success on your journey. And thanks again for being with me today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.